The day the Zorn arrived, everything changed. Their massive ships darkened the skies over Earth's major cities, hovering ominously like storm clouds ready to unleash destruction. The aliens broadcast their demands on all frequencies. Humanity was to surrender unconditionally or face annihilation. In New York, the United Nations convened an emergency summit of world leaders to formulate a response. The debate raged for hours as nations big and small made their voices heard. Some advocated capitulation, believing resistance was futile against the Zorn's advanced technology. Others called for defiance, unwilling to surrender Earth's sovereignty without a fight. As the arguments continued, militaries worldwide were already mobilizing. Aircraft carriers putting out to sea, jets scrambling to the skies, and armies deploying to major population centers. No one knew the full capabilities of the alien invaders, but the human warriors readied themselves to face the greatest threat Earth had ever known. In research labs and defense contractor facilities across the globe, scientists and engineers pored over every scrap of data on the Zorn ships, searching for weaknesses to exploit. They marveled at the alien technology on display, even as they sought ways to destroy it. After days of furious preparation and debate, humanity formulated its official reply to the Zorn ultimatum. In a historic address broadcast worldwide, the UN Secretary-General spoke for the human species. To the Zorn aggressors, Earth stands united against your unprovoked attack on our homeworld. We will not bend the knee to tyranny from the stars. Our reply is thus: leave now in peace, or stay and face the full might of humanity unleashed. The choice is yours. The Zorn received the transmission in disbelief. Many had expected the primitives to crumble in the face of their military might, but the humans dared to defy them. Unthinkable. The Zorn High Command sent back their own reply. Foolish Earthlings, you only delay your inevitable defeat. Watch now as we demonstrate the consequences of defiance. High above the skies of Beijing, an alien warship broke from the Zorn formation. It trained its weapons on the metropolis below, prepared to make an example of the city. In response, flights of Chinese fighter jets swarmed towards the enemy craft, ready to sacrifice themselves to save the city. Worldwide, humans watched the unfolding confrontation with bated breath. This would be the first combat test of human spirit and ingenuity against a foe from the stars. In homes, offices, and public squares across the planet, all eyes were glued to the screens, hoping desperately for a miracle. As the first shots were fired high above Beijing, the outbreak of war spurred a frenzy of activity across the globe. Old animosities and rivalries fell by the wayside as nations pooled their resources against the common threat. Divisions of language, religion, and ideology paled in comparison to the distinction between human and alien. A species-wide struggle for survival had begun. In labs and workshops from Silicon Valley to Shenzhen, top scientific minds worked around the clock to unravel the secrets of Zorn technology. Exotic materials recovered from the downed alien craft were studied intensely. Propulsion, weapons, sensors, anything that could give Earth an edge was prioritized. University engineering departments partnered with defense contractors to rapidly prototype new systems for implementation. Bleeding-edge developments in fields like additive manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology were fast-tracked from theoretical research into practical applications for the war effort. Military forces drilled constantly in new tactics and strategies for battling the technologically superior foe. Elite units from around the world cross-trained together, learning to coordinate their strengths. The best pilots flew endless simulator missions, preparing for the lightning speeds of space combat. Infantrymen trained in the use of powered exoskeletons and portable energy weapons to even the odds against Zorn troopers. While those in uniform readied for battle, civilians did their part as well. In factories and shipyards, workers toiled in shifts around the clock to churn out the vehicles, robots, and munitions the war machine required. Neighborhood watches and civil defense units formed to keep the home front secure. Those with skills in fields like coding, linguistics, and data analysis volunteered their talents to the cause. Intelligence agencies worldwide threw themselves into action, desperate for any scrap of information that could unravel the Zorn's plans and turn the tide. Using a combination of human operatives and their most sophisticated surveillance technologies, they probed for weaknesses in the aliens' defenses. Daring infiltration missions were launched to plant monitoring devices aboard Zorn ships or insert spies amidst their ranks. No place on Earth was too remote to contribute to the war effort. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes shared their knowledge of the jungle's medicinal plants, some of which showed promise treating the radiation burns inflicted by Zorn energy weapons. Arctic research stations became the hub for space tracking and communications monitoring. Even in the world's most impoverished regions, people found ways to pitch in, whether it was donating scrap metal or volunteering for civilian support roles. The sheer scale of humanity's cooperative efforts astonished the Zorn leadership. They had expected a fractured, easily conquered world, not a united front working with singular purpose. As their ships continued to face dogged resistance in orbit, and their initial assault forces suffered high casualty rates on the surface, the aliens were forced to reconsider their image of Earth as easy prey. But the Zorn remained confident in their technological supremacy. Surely the primitives' heroic efforts only delayed the inevitable. Resolving to crush the humans' resistance once and for all, the Zorn High Command began to plan a massive offensive to seize control of Earth. Massing their fleet in orbital staging areas, they prepared to unleash the full fury of their advanced weaponry on the human defenders below. On Earth, humanity caught wind of the impending attack and laid plans of their own. If the Zorn wanted a fight to the finish, then that was exactly what they would get. No longer content to wage a desperate defense, the humans would take the battle to the enemy. As a fateful confrontation loomed, the people of Earth steeled themselves, ready to risk everything to protect their home. As the bulk of the Zorn invasion fleet assembled in low Earth orbit, the unified human resistance set in motion a daring counterstrike. Stealthed weapons platforms and minefields had been quietly pre-positioned in anticipation of just such a moment. Swarms of nimble automated drones, each no larger than a dinner plate, moved into position amidst the alien armada, deactivated and floating dead to avoid detection. Precisely timed for a moment when the Zorn fleet was at its most congested, the human forces struck. Around the world, railgun and missile batteries unleashed their payloads, saturating near-Earth space with hypervelocity projectiles. The hidden drone swarms suddenly came alive, detonating shaped charges to shred the hulls of Zorn ships and sow chaos in their formations. The initial human salvo inflicted heavy damage, catching the aliens off guard. Several troop transports and a pair of escort frigates were destroyed outright, while many other ships suffered system failures from the onslaught. But the Zorn recovered quickly, their point defenses swatting the primitive kinetic projectiles and drones from the void. Their return bombardment hammered human launch sites, and flights of Zorn attack craft descended on the surface to strafe the most stubborn pockets of resistance. However, the assault from the ground had only been half of the human plan. As the alien fleet reeled and regrouped, squadrons of cutting-edge human warships dropped their cloaks and emerged from hiding spots in the asteroid belt and Earth-Luna Lagrange points. Slipping past the Zorn formation's edges, the human craft fired off a barrage of missiles and mass driver slugs, targeting damaged ships to maximize the carnage. The boxy, modular human vessels lacked the sleek contours of their alien counterparts, but bristled with weapons and incorporated captured Zorn technologies. Ablative stealth coatings, electronic countermeasures, and pseudo-AI evasion systems allowed them to dart dangerously close to enemy ships to inflict precision strikes before ducking away. Surprised once again by the audacity and effectiveness of the humans' attack, several Zorn warships broke formation to give chase to their tormentors. The human ships wove through the orbital plane, using the derelict hulks of destroyed ships as cover for hit-and-run attacks. The void lit up with twisting ion trails and strobing energy bursts as the deadly game of cat and mouse played out. Aboard the Zorn flagship at the center of the fleet, the commanding general seethed with rage and humiliation. To suffer such losses at the hands of primitive apes was intolerable. As reports streamed in of more ships falling to the humans' infuriatingly effective guerrilla strikes, the general ordered the remaining Zorn vessels to concentrate their firepower on the Earth below. If the humans wanted a war of annihilation, then so be it. But even as the Zorn ships began raining destruction upon Earth's surface, the humans unveiled the final phase of their counterstrike. Breaching pods loaded with elite human commando units launched from hidden silos, rocketing towards the damaged alien vessels, highlighted by targeting beacons planted earlier by infiltrator drones. The pods punched through weakened hull sections to deposit their deadly cargo aboard. Vicious close-quarters battles erupted within the claustrophobic confines of the alien ships as human strike teams fought to neutralize command decks, life support systems, and power plants. The Zorn crew, unprepared for such a bold boarding action, struggled to repel the attackers with their shipboard weaponry designed for open battlefield use. The strike team's powered armor, portable static shields, and high-impulse kinetic guns proved devastatingly effective in the cramped passageways. Hacking devices and malware payloads, painstakingly developed from captured alien computers, wormed their way into ship systems to sow confusion and disruption. One by one, the boarded Zorn ships fell into human hands. Aboard the flagship, the general could only watch in stunned disbelief as a full third of the fleet simply dropped off the command network, their transponder signals winking out. Seized by a sense of dread, the general realized that the humans may have just executed a staggering strategic victory. The Zorn had come to conquer a world, but now they faced the prospect of fighting to avoid that fate themselves. In the wake of the daring human counterstrike, the balance of power shifted dramatically in the Earth-Zorn war. The capture of multiple Zorn capital ships and the trove of alien technology they contained proved a major windfall for Earth's defenders. Salvaged propulsion systems, power generators, and weapons were reverse-engineered and rapidly incorporated into human ship designs. What had once been a desperate fight against a superior aggressor now became a more even contest. The new human hybrid warships could match the Zorn vessels in speed and firepower. Captured Zorn fabricators allowed the mass production of advanced arms and equipment for Earth's armies. Human-crewed ships now darted through space on raiding missions against Zorn staging points and supply lines across the solar system. The loss of so many ships and the disruption to their fleet's cohesion badly rattled the Zorn forces. Their initial confidence gave way to doubt as the humans scored victory after victory in a string of running battles and ambushes. Zorn ships, once quick to give chase to impudent human craft, now jumped skittishly at every sensor ghost, wondering if it heralded another assault or boarding action. Struggling to feed the massive resource demands of their invasion force while under constant harassment, Zorn forward bases in the asteroid belt and on the moons of Mars and Jupiter became scenes of privation. Repair and rearming operations proceeded at a glacial pace as human raiders picked off vulnerable targets. Infighting amongst ship captains and garrison commanders desperate to protect their own charges led to a breakdown in fleet coordination. Back on Earth, human ingenuity and determination continued to shift the war's momentum. Zorn wreckage was eagerly harvested for every scrap of useful material. Salvaged alien alloys found their way into new lines of fighting vehicles and body armor. Repurposed anti-gravity impellers and inertial dampeners revolutionized terrestrial transportation and logistics. Compact K-field generators ripped from Zorn hulls were mounted on speedy attack craft, allowing them to shred enemy ships with their own distorted spacetime. But human innovations went beyond mere imitation of Zorn technology. Earth's brightest minds devised daring new applications for combined human and alien science that the Zorn had never anticipated. Swarms of self-replicating nanomachines were released to devour Zorn ships from the inside out. Esoteric particle beams and quantum field manipulators ignored conventional defenses to inflict devastating damage. Viral smart code and biomimetic robot infiltrators tore through the Zorn's digital security and sabotaged their systems from within. The once indomitable alien armada found itself battered from all sides and struggling to hold ground. A fleet-wide redeployment to fortify their main base orbiting Jupiter left their deep space communication relays vulnerable, allowing a lightning human strike to destroy them and cut the Zorn expeditionary force off from their empire. Now unable to call for help and facing dire supply shortages, the Zorn commander was forced to consider a painful reality: retreat from the solar system or potentially face annihilation at the hands of the rapidly advancing humans. But in their arrogance, the Zorn had dismissed the humans as unworthy primitives, assuming their resistance could be easily crushed. That hubris now came back to haunt them as the expeditionary force refused to heed its commander's pragmatic arguments for withdrawal. To admit defeat by the hands of lowly Earthlings was too shameful to bear. The Zorn would make their stand at Jupiter base and fight to the bitter end. As Zorn forces converged on Jupiter for a final climactic battle, Earth's united fleets marshaled for their greatest test yet. A victory here could break the back of the invasion and secure the solar system for humanity. A loss would doom the scattered human ships and leave Earth vulnerable to vengeful alien reprisals. Everything hinged on this desperate gamble. Streaking from factories and shipyards in orbit and across the solar system, the final human armada assembled, the mighty Zeus fleet. Pulling ships from every theater and front line, it incorporated the best technology and brightest minds Earth had to offer. Nervously putting their faith in a mix of tried and tested designs and wild experimental craft, the human admirals planned their attack. It would be a glorious victory to ring through the ages, or a defiant last stand that would at least make the Zorn rue the day they dared to threaten humanity's home. In the shadow of Jupiter's swirling storms, the Zeus fleet hurtled headlong towards its final reckoning with the Zorn invaders. A ragtag armada of vessels from every nation of Earth, bolstered by Frankenstein hybrids of human and alien technology, the fleet burned hard for the orbital tracks of the gas giants' moons, where the remnants of the once proud Zorn expeditionary force now huddled for a final stand. The battle began at extreme range as flights of escort craft from both sides clashed in the electromagnetic cauldrons of Jupiter's radiation bands. Flashes of fusion fire and dark energy beams crisscrossed the void, ships twisting and spiraling as they engaged in high-speed passes. Both sides probed the other's defenses, searching for openings for the heavy capital ships to exploit. Aboard the Zeus fleet's flagship, the UNSF Athena, Commander Anaya Sarkar drew in a determined breath as she studied the tactical holosphere. The enemy fleet glowed an angry red, clustered around the broken wheel shape of Jupiter base. The massed defenders bristled with weaponry in a hedgehog posture, poised to fend off any assault. Sarkar knew she would need to hit hard and fast to break their formation before grinding attrition could wear down her fleet. "Deploy the first strike wing," Sarkar ordered, her voice betraying no hint of uncertainty. "Have the Longinus frigates enter Stage 1. Kinetic bombardment. All Thermopylae point to fence platforms, engage cloaking, and move to screening positions." From the flanks of the Zeus fleet, a wave of angular assault ships shot forward, their dark hulls shimmering and crackling with strange energies. These were mankind's most radical innovations, ships designed around salvaged Zorn singularity projectors and esoteric dark energy weapons. Weapons that bent the laws of physics in localized pockets of space-time to inflict tremendous damage. Taking such fundamental forces and wielding them as weapons had been fraught with peril, but if they could only perform as intended, they would be Sarkar's trump cards. Simultaneously, flights of Longinus-class frigates advanced in tandem with clouds of attack drones, modular and utilitarian. These were mankind's evolutionary response to the necessities of space warfare. With their railguns, mass drivers, and particle lances, they would attempt to erode the Zorn defenses through. Simultaneously, flights of Longinus-class frigates advanced in tandem with clouds of attack drones, modular and utilitarian. These were mankind's evolutionary response to the necessities of space warfare. With their railguns, mass drivers, and particle lances, they would attempt to erode the Zorn defenses through sheer volume of fire, while the more exotic craft maneuvered into position for precision strikes. The Zorn responded with a salvo of their own, sending a swarm of plasma torpedoes and hunter-killer drones to intercept the human vanguard. Dancers of silent death twirled through the void as human and alien craft evaded and attacked in turn. Stabbing particle beams and shimmering energy webs lit the darkness in a deadly light show. As the initial skirmish lines boiled into a frenzy of destruction, the main gun batteries of the capital ships on both sides began to exchange long-range fire. The Zorn, forced into a defensive posture by their dwindling numbers, concentrated their ships into a dense wall of shields and hulls, sacrificing maneuverability for interlocking fields of fire. The human fleet responded by splitting into two prongs, forcing the aliens to divide their attention. Sarkar watched the unfolding fight with a falcon's intensity, directing her ships like chess pieces on a grand board. She had the advantage of numbers. But the Zorn base was a formidable obstacle, studded with redundant shield generators, flak emplacements, and minefields. Bit by bit, the humans would need to pry open the aliens' defenses and steadily widen the breach. In the midst of the furball, the Athena shuddered as a Zorn particle beam grazed her shields. Damage reports flooded in from the strike wing as they weathered the defenders' opening bombardment. Sarkar tuned out the chatter, trusting her captains to adapt and overcome individual challenges. Her eyes remained fixed on the greater flow of battle. "Bring up the flanking elements," she said, "and prepare to commit the Spartans." From the Zeus fleet's rear formations, reinforcements burned hard to join the fray. Heavy destroyers, ship-killer corvettes, and the bulky forms of troop transports packed with space marine shock forces. But it was the Spartan cruisers that drew Sarkar's attention. Sleek, predatory ships that represented the bleeding edge of human engineering, Zorn technology, and ancient Greek naming sensibilities. Spearheading the fresh assault, the Spartans plunged into the thickest knots of fighting, shrugging off plasma bolts and disruptor blasts with contemptuous ease. Peeling away from the main battle line, they arsed towards Jupiter base, the icy crust of Europa gleaming beneath them. As one, their bows yawned open, and from within each, a torrent of small objects streamed forth on plumes of dry fire. Sarkar allowed herself a tight smile. The Spartans' cargo was one of the Zeus fleet's most closely guarded secrets, a swarm of boarding torpedoes, their armored hulls packed with the finest Marines Earth had to offer. Each torpedo had been painstaking engineered from the wreckage of captured Zorn vessels to evade the aliens' defensive sensors. Their mission, to deliver the Marines to the very heart of the enemy base, where they would wreak havoc from within. As the torpedoes streaked towards Jupiter base, the battle descended into a chaotic melee. Human and Zorn ships danced a deadly waltz, beams and missiles crisscrossing between them as they wheeled and twisted. The space around them became a junkyard of smashed hulls and frozen corpses. But even as the Zorn fought with the cornered desperation of a beaten foe, the signs of their impending defeat were unmistakable. Their vaunted base, once thought unassailable, now trembled under the human onslaught. Massive breaches marred its outer ring where the first assault ships had rammed their way into hangar bays, disgorging Marine forces to storm the interior. Explosions rippled through its superstructure as the boarding torpedoes found their marks, the Marines within wasting no time setting demolition charges. Sarkar allowed herself a shred of hope as the tactical holo updated, showing the Zorn fleet rapidly dwindling to a fraction of its starting strength. But even as the human fleet pressed the attack, a new threat emerged. A massive signature suddenly flared into being at the edge of the battle space, an immense Zorn dreadnought, the likes of which Earth's forces had never encountered. Easily 5 times the size of a human battleship, it disgorged swarms of attack craft and lumbered ponderously towards the fray, its weapon mounts glowing white-hot as they charged. A collective groan went up from the crew of the Athena as the new contact registered. How could they tackle such a behemoth while still locked in desperate battle with the base and its fleet? Sarkar felt a moment's spike of fear, but forced it down ruthlessly. They had come too far to falter now, no matter the odds. Concentrate the fleet on that dreadnought, she barked. Ravens, Myrmidon squadrons, keep the small craft off us. Longinus group, target the forward batteries, then the engines. Athena will engage directly. Sarkar's eyes blazed with determination as she gripped the rail of her command podium. One way or another, this would be the Zeus fleet's finest hour. They would snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, or die trying. In the name of Earth, in the name of all they held dear, they would show these starfaring predators the true meaning of human defiance. As the Zeus fleet and the Zorn armada hurtled towards their final cataclysmic clash, Sarkar whispered a final stubborn promise to herself and to every human heart watching from a beleaguered Earth. We will not go quietly into the night. If this must be our end, we'll make it an end worthy of remembrance. Let the Zorn behold the full glory and fury of humankind, here at the twilight of our insolent resistance. In our defiance, we are infinite. With a last determined breath, Sarkar raised her voice to address the fleet. This is it, Zeus fleet. Cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war. Give them hell. And with that, the humans charged, screaming, into the greatest test of their resolve and ingenuity yet, ready to seize their fate among the stars. The titanic dreadnought loomed ahead, filling the entire view screen, its pitted obsidian hull pulsing with eldritch energies. The ships of the Zeus fleet swarmed around it like hornets harrying a bear, their weapons gouging brilliant gashes across its shielding. The dreadnought responded with devastating volleys from its city-sized laser banks, burning all it touched to molten slag. Capital ships on both sides erupted into miniature suns as they tore each other apart in merciless broadside exchanges. In the heart of the firestorm, the Athena twisted like an eel as it threaded between the deadly lances of energy. Impossibly nimble for a craft its size, the battleship slalomed through the Zorn barrage as its own guns pummeled the dreadnought's shields. Despite the desperate evasions, the sheer weight of fire took its toll as molten craters blossomed across the Athena's hull. Shields failing, the defense officer shouted over the cacophony of klaxons and echoing explosions. Hull breaches on decks 9, 14, and 21. Sarkar gritted her teeth as the ship quaked around her, burning sparks raining from severed power conduits above. They couldn't absorb this kind of punishment for long. Route reserve power to aft shields and weapons. Prepare to bring our prow about and channel all power to the forward spur. We're going to ram them. The Athena's crew scrambled to obey, pouring every joule of power into reinforcing the forward superstructure. Then, at a precise break in the dreadnought's firing pattern, the Athena rolled out 90 degrees, presenting its wedge-shaped prow like a battering ram. The engines flared brighter than the sun as emergency overdrives kicked in, propelling the ship towards the Zorn behemoth at a huge fraction of light speed. In the brief seconds before impact, as the alien warship swelled before them like the face of God, the dreadnought's commander must have divined their suicidal intent. It fired its thrusters in a desperate attempt to evade, but the massive ship could not hope to dodge in time. The Athena struck like the hammer of an angry deity. The two ships seemed to fuse in a confusion of fire and shredded metal shards, the Athena burying itself a third of the way into the larger ship's side. Secondary explosions ravaged both ships' innards as energy systems overloaded from the catastrophic collision. The Athena's forward prow crumpled like foil from the impact, warping decks and bulkheads like crushed origami. Thousands died instantly on both ships, human and Zorn alike torn asunder or spaced in the blink of an eye. But the Athena's crew refused to perish in vain. Even as the ship shuddered on the verge of structural collapse, the Marines and technicians who still lived launched themselves into the gaping void slashed into the dreadnought's hull. Wielding plasma cutters, demo charges, and sheer, indomitable human stubbornness, they carved their way into the wounded Leviathan, even as it thrashed in its death throes, both ships still exchanging thunderous volleys with the surrounding fleet. Aboard the dreadnought's mangled bridge, the Zorn commander watched in aghast disbelief as the holodisplays showed squads of void-suited humans spreading through the ship like a virus, shrugging off everything the crew threw at them. They planted mines on magazine stores, reactor housings, and vital system choke points. They hacked into command nodes and life support systems, sowing havoc and terror in their wake. Even in the face of the humans' unbridled fury, the commander could only marvel at their tenacity. What manner of beings were these that threw themselves into the teeth of near-certain death with such conviction? An explosion somewhere deep in the command deck sent the commander staggering into a flickering bulkhead. Damage reports flooded in from all sections, each more grave than the last. A final glance at the master display revealed the inevitable. The dreadnought was lost, crippled beyond recovery. The furious boarding action had been a masterstroke, capitalizing on the brief window of vulnerability afforded by the collision. Even now, the surviving human ships pressed the assault on all fronts, smelling blood in the water. The Zorn commander drew themselves up with wounded pride, determined to face the end with some measure of dignity. At a nod to the few remaining officers, the general evacuation order went out. Escape pods launched in droves like panicked silverfish. As the last Zorn evacuated the dying ship, the commander paused at the hatch of their own life pod. There would be no victory here, only a fighting retreat to the Zorn core worlds. But that would be a worry for the future. Now, only one thought dominated the commander's mind as the hatch sealed shut and blasted free of the doomed warship. Never again would they underestimate these humans. Never again. In the CIC of the stricken Athena, Sarkar hauled herself upright on the edge of the projector table. The collision had turned the bridge into a scene from hell. A morass of flickering red emergency lights, arcing cables, and groaning bulkheads. Half the consoles were dead or belched smoke and sparks. But incredibly, they had done it. The master display showed the Zorn dreadnought listing drunkenly, the dying ship racked by convulsive explosions from the intrepid Marine's handiwork. Beyond it, the remnants of the Zorn fleet milled in confusion, all cohesion lost. Some ships tried vainly to disengage, looking to flee, while others lashed out in doomed fury at their tormentors. Everywhere the human fleet pressed the attack, tightening the noose. It was a victory, pyrrhic and bloody and unbelievably costly, but a victory nonetheless. The Zorn expeditionary force was shattered. Driven off in ignominious defeat, Earth had held the line. Humanity would survive. Sarkar sank back against the projector table, heedless of the damage reports still streaming in. Relief warred with grief and a bone-deep exhaustion as the full weight of the day's carnage hit home. Dimly, she registered the few unwounded crew members hugging each other or shouting in ragged joy. They had lived to fight another day. A chime from the comm panel caught Sarkar's attention. She dragged herself over to peer at the spiderwebbed view screen and felt a thrill of hope at the sight. A small ship, a diplomatic cutter by the looks of it, had detached from Jupiter base, now secured by Marine forces. It broadcast on all frequencies as it approached the guttering hulk of the Athena. "This is Emissary Koth of the Zorn Conclave to the human commander." The voice was strained and grainy, but the message was unmistakable. "On behalf of the Conclave, I offer our unconditional surrender. Victory is yours. I say again, we surrender." In that moment, as the bridge crew erupted in fresh cheers around her, Sarkar felt the weight of history settle on her shoulders like a mantle. The road ahead would be long and fraught. There were still Zorn worlds out there, and doubtless more threats humanity had yet to discover in the uncaring cosmos. But today they had earned their place at the galactic table. The indomitable spirit of humanity had proven itself among the stars. Let whatever would come next beware. Beware the dreamers and tinkerers of Earth, whose defiant brilliance had toppled an empire. In the face of human ingenuity, tenacity, and sheer stubborn grit, the universe itself could tremble.